Hello everyone, thanks for joining us at Texas Insider. I'm Jim Cardle. We're pleased to have with us today State Representative Jose Aliseda from House District 35, which runs representative just a little bit south of San Antonio over to the east near Corpus Christi. You have been a former prosecutor, county elected official, long involved in politics, and back in November had a lot of Austin talking. There was a bit of a statewide wave, but certainly you were one of a handful down in the valley that really did a stellar job. Congratulations on your
Thank you.
Election victory. And we want to talk about a couple things before getting to perhaps the legislative session. But tell us just briefly, you're not too far away from a tough race. You had a three-term incumbent. Obviously, the president, Mr. Obama, was not at the top of the ticket this time, and there's a Tea Party wave, a wave of distrust. What was your secret? How'd you get over the goal line? What was the race like?
Well, my strategy was to show that she was not voting her district. So I had 2 or 3 core issues that I used.
That's always a concern, whether or not you're representing your district or not.
To show that she didn't represent our district. The life issue was an important issue for me. I used it heavily throughout the campaign.
And you all have just passed the sonogram bill in the House last week.
That's correct. Then we had the fiscal issue is very important to the Tea Party people, and I tried to show that she was a tax and spend Democrat, as Democrats are prone to be. And the other issue that I think resonated is that she would vote like a urban Democrat rather than a rural Democrat, and I could pick out conservative issues that were important to the people in my district. I pointed out her voting record on immigration issues and some other issues that I think showed her to be what I portrayed her to be, which is the urban Democrat versus a rural Democrat.
You know, that's interesting. We don't hear about that very often. It's mostly liberal versus conservative, but then there's mostly referred to out in West Texas is always a concern, but the city urban versus the country rural. Your district is primarily rural.
That's right. It's 7 rural counties south of San Antonio and as far south as Fremont, Texas, which is almost to the valley. Up until my friend Aaron Pena switched parties, my district was the farthest south, Republican district farthest south. And
Aaron's another one. You're right. There's a couple folks down there, and it would lead us to the next question because you're from Beeville, Bell County.
No, B County.
B County, I'm sorry. And the next step a lot of you have taken this legislative session is to form the Hispanic Republican Conference.
Yes.
You started out with what, 6 members?
6
3
members
or 4
that actually had Hispanic surnames or Hispanic, I don't know what you would call it. Blood. I guess that's the easiest way to say it.
And now you're up to 30, correct?
We're up to 30 because we've tried to open it up to members that had a large majority of Hispanics in their districts. I think our cutoff was actually 30% for non-voting members and 40% for voting members.
And you're vice chairman of that group.
Yes.
And just tell our listeners, I don't believe you've banded together to necessarily execute any agenda, but just to help messaging and coordination in each other's bills and to show folks across Texas that it's okay to be a conservative no matter what your blood is. So
that's correct. That's correct. To show people that, actually, I think we help show those people that do have Hispanic blood that it is all right to be a Republican. For a long time, Republican was a 4-letter word in South Texas, and it has slowly been changing. I was elected a Republican back in 1992.
Okay.
And I was probably, myself and Tony Garza from Cameron County were the only Hispanic Republicans south of San Antonio at the time.
Tony Garza, former Secretary of State, went on to become ambassador to Mexico under President Bush. And you, I know, Representative, were born in Mexico.
That's correct.
And came to the United States, I assume, legally.
I came here legally.
Mention a little bit about your childhood, and we'll move into that immigration type issue.
I was born in Mexico City, Mexico.
Okay.
My father brought us over. My father's an immigrant also. Actually, he was born in Spain, but ended up in Mexico during the Spanish Civil War. His family were refugees from Spain.
So even going back that far, you're the epitome of what so many Texans are talking about, is this generation that is now not only in Texas, but running and being successful elected to office.
I believe my life story is a very good life story, and it is truly the American dream.
So you came here when you were a child?
At 4, I became a U.S. citizen. At 17, graduated from McAllen High School, got my Bachelor of Arts and my law degree from the University of Texas at Austin. While I was in law school, I joined the United States Navy, served 5 years as a naval officer. You may have seen that show, JAG. Have you ever seen that show?
Yes, sir, you bet.
I was a JAG officer for the Navy, and the movie A Few Good Men is loosely based on my life story, but that's just a joke.
So you don't mess around.
I'm the Tom Cruise in that movie. So.
There you go.
But
you've got a good legal background. You're certainly
after the Navy,
is the point.
I ended up in the Navy in Chase Field, Beeville, Texas. I was the staff judge advocate for the base, and I liked the town. I stayed there, ran as a Democrat, county attorney, and it was actually talked into switching parties by the first President Bush, Herbert Walker Bush.
Is that right?
That's right. The Republican Party officials there were trying to get a party started, and they saw an opportunity in me because I'd been doing things that the Democrats didn't like prosecuting voter fraud cases, and I prosecuted our county judge for some conflicts of interest, and they liked that law and order position. They thought it was a good chance to get me to switch, especially since the Democrats had already recruited an opponent. And they set up a meeting. Herbert Walker Bush used to fly down to Beeville to hunt with his good friend there in Goliad County, and they set up a lunch meeting, and he asked me to switch, and how could you turn the president down? So I switched and ran as a Republican and won as a Republican.
That'd be tough. That's the Bush family who gets critiqued all these recent days for not being conservative enough, and granted there's some fiscal policies from President George W., but that perspective is very interesting. I can see why you were a tough opponent. Now you're here in the legislature. You've got some bills I know of particular interest I want to ask you about, because voter ID is going to be voted on next week here in the House, one of the last weeks of March. But you in particular, Representative, have focused on some voter ID issues, or how to address that concern, and have prosecuted. Tell us a little bit about your efforts there.
Well, my prosecutions had to deal with mail-in voter fraud, which is probably the most prevalent form of voter fraud there is. This voter ID bill is primarily to address issues of in-person voter fraud in order to, well, really the main purpose of this bill, I believe, is the public needs this. They need to believe that our election system is safe.
Because right now they're not sure. They're questioning
not sure.
the integrity.
Exactly.
Certainly.
Where in today's society, in American society, do you not have to show an ID? For something as simple as renting a movie at Blockbuster, you need to show your ID.
Give them your driver's license. That's right.
So the American public has become accustomed to showing an ID, and Democrats as well as Republicans want our system safe. They're concerned that we've heard these stories about Acorn coming in and registering Mickey Mouse and Pluto and Minnie Mouse.
And the Dallas Cowboys football team of 97, right?
And they're saying enough is enough. We need to at least with respect to those people that come in to vote, they need to prove who they are at the time they vote. That's what this bill is about.
And so you've identified the mail-in aspect of the process being, I guess, is it fair to say, the most vulnerable area that you want to address?
In South Texas, that's the way a lot of elections are won, is through mail-in voter fraud. And that's a different way to vote altogether. You don't need an ID to cast a mail-in ballot.
Where you've said you're going to be out of the country.
Well, you don't even have to do that. You just have to be 65 or older, and you can vote by mail. And what is happening, they call them vote harvesters in the valley.
Okay.
What happens is they hire these people, politiqueras, you say it in Spanish, but vote harvesters is a better way to say it. And these people go around, register the elderly, get them to apply for a mail-in ballot, or maybe they're not even applying, maybe they're just doing it for them. They get their mail-in ballots back, and literally they will follow the post office mailman to the door of the elderly person, go inside and quote, help the elderly person vote. They're doing what you can't do in the ballot box. In the ballot, in in-person voting, no one can suggest to you by word, sign, or gesture who you can vote for or you should vote for.
You sound like you've prosecuted. Okay,
well, I have prosecuted.
I know. By word,
sign, or gesture.
Sign or gesture.
So let's say you go in to vote in person. Somebody goes in there to, quote, assist you in the vote.
Okay.
And they say, here, mark this right here. And that might be mark straight Democrat, mark straight Republican, or it might be vote for this particular candidate. They might say, vote for him. And at that point, you've violated the law. So what is happening in these people's homes, or at the nursing homes, it occurs normally in a home, is that they have these politiqueros or politiqueras coming in and saying, vote here, vote here, vote here. And what we believe is also happening is if these people do not vote the way they were instructed to vote, their ballots are disappearing. In other words, the mail-in or the vote harvester doesn't deposit the ballot, it doesn't get mailed.
So
the vote's not even counted.
It's either a vote of addition as instructed or subtraction for the opposition.
That's how you could manipulate the system. Or worse yet, you get ballots and you take them out of the mailbox, you vote it, put it in the mail, send it in.
Now, is it true, we've heard that this politiqueros, there's older women or the generations of people have actually made a good living. They're paid for these votes. Talk about that for a second.
Cash under the table. It's not declared. They're normally people that rely on, they put themselves out to the various candidates. And lately, this was a Democrat-on-Democrat problem in Jim Wells County. We actually had, and that's one of the counties in my district, we actually had the district attorney come down to Jim Wells County and actually file charges on some of these politiqueros. And it slowed our politiqueras and slowed things down. When I did it back in the early 90s, my primary reason is much like my primary reason in trying to vote this voter ID bill through, and that is the people in Beeville County did not believe that their elections were fair. They needed to have someone come in with authority and make an effort to investigate and to actually bring some people to justice so that they could have confidence in the system. And that's really what this voter ID bill that we're pushing through right now is for, is to give the public confidence in the system.
And we've been fortunate to have you. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Folks, appreciate you joining us. Representative, we want to have you back before the session's over.
Sure.
Hope you'll do that.
I'd like to do this often.
And would just ask you as well to keep joining us for future editions of Texas Insider. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Cardle.